Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to Brickyard. I'm Andrea Thompson, and today we are continuing on with our new series, Intersectional Poetica. And this series allows us to get in depth with spoken word artists with a focus on a diversity of topics. This month, we're focusing on mental health in honor of World Mental Health Day on October 10th. And today it is my pleasure to be chatting with Sabrina Benaim. Hi, Sabrina.
Hello.
How are
How are
you?
you? I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really happy to see you. I haven't seen you for a
Yes,
long time. Tonight is
a
the
long
first time
time.
in a while.
Yes.
Okay, so I know you well, but maybe not everybody does. But if they don't, I don't know where they've been. So, but for maybe the one or two who don't, let me read your bio and give them a little lay of the land. So, Sabrina Benaim is a 34-year-old poet, performer, and workshop facilitator. She is one of the most viewed spoken word poets of all time and is the author of the best-selling collection of poetry, Depression and Other Magic Tricks. Her videos have reached over 100 million people. Sabrina has toured in Australia, the UK, Canada, and the US with her live shows, which are poetry readings gone electric. While the subject matter can veer into difficult territory, it is with truth and from experience that Sabrina is able to navigate through her mental illness journey with a wild sense of humor and frank discussion to leave her audience feeling comforted and uplifted. She has been guest on CBC's Q with Tom Power, has written for SONY, ESPNW, and made her television debut writing and voicing a national commercial for the 2016 Olympics. Sabrina believes in breaking down stigma around mental illness, women helping women, and ghosts. And she will accept any invitation to dance. What a great bio.
Ian Kataku wrote most of it.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's why it's good.
It's awesome. We have, if anybody's like Ian Katahu, Ian Kataku is another Canadian spoken word luminary, and we have some of his work here on Brickyard, so go check him out. He was actually the mentor in our mentorship program this year and worked with some young people to create work that has like blown my mind. So he's a gem. He's a gem. As are you. And so, I don't know if people who are tuning in know this, but I have been a teacher of spoken word for a very long time. And Sabrina took one of my classes way back when. And when I am in class, I love letting people know that, because I find a lot of people who when they start their spoken word journey, they might see somebody like you and think, like, wow, I could never get there. And so I love hearing the stories from spoken word artists about how they started and how they got from, not being on a stage at all to where they are now. So could you share a little bit about your journey?
Yeah. So yeah, in 2012, I took your class in the summer at OCAD, and it was really a weird time for me because I had been writing for a very long time in journals, but I had been diagnosed with a tumor earlier that year in my thyroid that was actually the size of a squash ball. It was very large. And my best friend was like, "Oh, it's because you like swallow all your feelings and you always are writing them, and you should do like spoken word poetry. It's like a thing now." And so we looked it up, and he was like, "Yeah, like there's this class in Toronto. You should go to it." And so I remember I didn't sign up till that day, because the day that it started, the first class, because I was so nervous. And yeah, or like he signed me up or whatever. I got to class, and it was like, okay, like people do this. And it was kind of nice to, even though I didn't know I was going to start sharing it on stage at that point, like at that point, it was just in classroom that I was like committing to. But it felt really nice to just be like, okay, I'm in a place where other people, even if they don't feel the same way as me, they like are using the same means of expression. And that feels really nice and kind of safe in a way. And I feel like one thing I've continued on in this whole journey since that first class, which then like, of course, you brought us to an open mic, which led to a slam. I feel like I went to the slam because you were featuring the slam. And then I watched that feature and was like, this is cool. And then went to a slam, and it just snowballed. But really what has been steady is workshops through my journey. Like I have consistently taken classes throughout, and I feel like it's always just brought me into like such wonderful company, and always, an opportunity is always born out of, I don't know, just like the community, or if not a connection, like a specific one.
Oh, that's so funny. So many people talk about community. It's such a funny thing. Yeah, that's great. One of the things too that I find that's really striking and very kind of a common thing that I'm hearing from spoken word artists is that they're not necessarily kind of natural born performers, or some have social anxiety, or are more introverted. So for you, what was it like your first time getting on stage? Did that feel like, oh, piece of cake, or was it like, how did you find that?
It was very scary, to be honest. I didn't really love it, but I think at the beginning, the urgency of the words coming out is kind of like greater than the fear, or like you at least want it to be in the right headspace of like performing for the first time. Like you want that urgency of the words to come out of you in a way that feels organic. And I feel like doing that at the beginning is kind of like capturing lightning in a bottle, where you're just like so afraid, but if you go out there, you'll like get it. And if you don't, you don't. Like, there's been nights where I'm like, I go up to do a poem, and it's like that poem isn't sitting in my body for whatever reason. Or, like I dropped a poem at a slam once. And I remember being so upset, but like I just, the poem left my body. Like it just wasn't there. And I think that you have to like understand that like the act of performing the thing is not like reflective of the like quality of the poem. You know what I mean? Like
Totally.
it's like it's like you have to separate how the writing from the performance, and understand that like you as a human are faulty and like are not going to perform all the time the way like the way the work deserves necessarily, and that's okay. You have to let yourself be like the vessel for the work. And right, if you have a good show, you have a bad show, sometimes the poems just don't. It's like I would imagine it's the same with singers who like have big hits. Like for me, my explaining my depression to my mother is kind of like my hot single. But I would like some nights, I'm really in that zone, and sometimes I'm really not, and I'm in a great mood, and I would like nothing less than to talk about my depression. You know what I mean? You got to do what you got to do. So I think it's like, as long as you can separate that, like it's not, the poem can live in different iterations on different nights of performance, and like you're human, and you're just bringing the work. And I think to go back to community, like when that poem went viral, I feel like what happened was, for me, I stopped looking at the room as the audience and started looking at the room as like more the community, like the space we are sharing. And like, that night I was like, this is a lot for me to hold. Like I had a panic attack. It was a lot for me to hold. And I started looking at my work as like, oh, do I want to, if I bring this into a room, like I'm asking the room to hold this work. Right. So it's really like a community every time you're walking into a shared space to bring your work into it or to perform your work, because you have to build some level of safety or comfort for the level of, I don't know, for any poetry. Like there's so much vulnerability in poetry.
I was going to ask you about that. It's like you're reading my notes. That was something that I was really thinking about, especially because, we're building the showcase around mental health. And I feel so blessed to have such amazing artists, spoken word artists, who really have a focus and a passion in mental health, and workshops, teaching, as well as performing around the topic. But, I was looking at your book again today. Sabrina has a new book out, newish. Can you see that? There we go. I love you. Call me back. And I was taking a look at it again today, and it really struck me. I was like, wow, this is vulnerable, and I think this is the catharsis of the art form, but also it takes some courage. So I was wondering if you can speak to that. Like, how do you find that balance, and how do you feel existing in that space?
Yeah, I think again, like having my first kind of big poem, my single poem, be what it was, like explaining my depression to my mother, is quite a vulnerable piece of work in itself, that I think it kind of like it's set a level where I'm like, okay, I know I can be that vulnerable publicly. And like, for the most part, the response was so positive. I just like remember going into that being like, I'm the only person that feels like this. And coming out of that being like, oh, everybody that I'm talking to thought they were the only person that felt like this, until I was like, hey, I feel like this. And they were like, me too. And so it kind of was this instant community of like people who were just like, yeah, we're also feel depressed and don't know how to articulate it, or like also feel the way you articulated that you feel. And I think ever since that, it's kind of given me such a like buffer zone to exist in, you know, like I don't know, it's like, okay, if I could start with explaining depression to my mother, like most of the work I'm doing, it's around that kind of temperature of vulnerability, right? Like it's hovering around it, it's orbiting it, but it's not always the same heat, like, you know. So I think there is, yeah, it's kind of, it's been, I'm so fortunate to have had that experience where like, you know, the YouTube comments were like positive and lovely and not, you know, terrifying.
I think you really, I mean, I know you did, from teaching and bringing your work into the classroom, and especially in the context of like sitting in a class that you had taken. You know, I had some real fans of yours in classes, and you know, young women, and I know that one of the biggest benefits they felt from reading your work and watching you perform was this idea of kind of permission, you know, like you opened up some space where people could express themselves in similar ways. And it's something actually I was curious about. I wanted to ask you about, because now you're the workshop facilitator, you're doing teaching. And what is it like now to kind of step into that role? You know, I know you've taken so many classes, and now you're acting as mentor. Does it feel like responsibility, or is it just super fun? How is it for you?
It feels exciting for me to have the experience as much as it does to be, you know, like for the other person. I feel like if I'm, as much as I'm teaching the class, I'm also taking the class, you know. So there's so much I'm learning from what, you know, like I might put a poem forward and be like, okay, let's break this poem open and talk about it. And someone's insight on that poem might be so different than my own that it like unlocks something in my brain that like, right, like I couldn't have come to that understanding without this student in the class giving their insight. And so it's really such a nice give and take when you're facilitating workshops, especially poetry workshops, because often there includes some sort of a share out of what you're writing, and you just get to like sit in awe of people for a solid chunk of time and just listen to what their brains did while your brain was, you know, like writing about the moon. You know what I mean? You're
For
like,
sure.
so that's very cool. But it's also just really nice to know that like, okay, I was given the permission by like a lot of people. You know, anytime I do a show and someone's in the audience, like they want to be in that audience for the most part. And that's something that like has given me the allowance to dig in a little more and get a little bit more vulnerable, right? Like I couldn't have written book 2 if book 1 wasn't received so beautifully. And so it's really given me that permission that in a workshop setting, I get to give it back and like offer it, pay it forward, so to speak. And so that feels really nice.
Sweet. Nice. And you have some more fun projects coming up, eh? What are you like? And I love it. You were talking about storytelling, and I love it because you have some prose poems in here that I'm like, this is like veering on short stories. So I'm interested. So what can please tell us about what you're doing now? What you're doing next?
Yeah, so the next project you will see from me will be an audio special. It'll be an hour-long audio special. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the title yet. I don't know if it's been announced, so I'm just gonna let it like untitled mystery project. It should come out in the spring, and it's really like storytelling, a lot of storytelling and poems mixed together, a little hybrid, something more akin to what you would find at a live show of mine. And then book 3 I'm working on, which will be another poetry collection, which I'm in the early stages of right now. So I don't know what it will be, but it will be heartfelt and beautiful and all the kinds of, it'll be all the feelings.
All the things.
Based on where it is now, it will be very emotional.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, you know, like you've got a wheelhouse of a kind of authentic, vulnerable, and charming too. You know, I was really thinking about that, how you have that ability to be, you know, fun and light, even as you go into the dark. And I think that that's a real gift to people.
Thank you.
So
I do want to,
what?
oh,
Yeah.
I just want to plug, I also, that's what I'm working on creatively, but I also have some workshops coming up on button poetry, which people can check out if they are interested in workshops.
Sweet. Yeah. Okay.
Via
Cool.
Zoom.
Button Poetry. We actually met with the founder of Button Poetry, and he was lovely and very helpful for
Yes.
Brickyard. So we're fans, definitely. Okay, so I just want to ask one more question, and then I want to hear a poem from you. So the question I'm ending most of these interviews with for this mental health showcase is, you know, for somebody who has such a command of the tool of the written and spoken word, to tackle issues around mental health, what kind of words of wisdom as an artist would you have for somebody who might be having a lot of feels right now and not quite sure how to process them?
I think my biggest like thing about writing as a practice, as like a daily practice, is something I do every day just to like navigate my brain, is that you don't have to show it to anyone. Like there is no thing that says if you write something down in a notebook about how you're feeling that it ever has to be said out loud. And there's so much permission. Like before I ever did spoken word poetry, I was just writing in notebooks throughout many years. And I think there's so much permission in the page that is just there for you, to get out how you're feeling. And then it's up to you if you want to like take the next step and share that with the world.
Yeah, and you could take Sabrina's workshop, and then that could be the step towards the next step. So
yeah, exactly.
Okay, please, I would love to hear a poem from you. And okay, so I'm my techie, so I want to make sure I've got you on the right view, and I will mute myself. So take it away whenever you're ready.
Okay, so this poem is from I Love You, Call Me Back, and it's about feeling better. It's July 11th. The flowers, they are not singing. I dreamt this up once long ago, and here it is. A Sunday afternoon spent falling in love with myself. If this is what it is to be alive, if this is all it is, vampire weekend parading out the big white speakers that, yes, I ordered on Amazon. Forgive me, but they make me feel good. They have this ability to hook up to my record player and sing to me when I need the everlasting arms of song the most. Like this morning, after walking by the church with Mabel and swearing to God or Beyonce, I do not need another body. Even if my honey arms refuse to hold love, only throw themselves in the air in celebration of music, then leave me to myself. Lead me to myself. The music, it's alive, and so am I. Sing, sing, sing. I did not die before I made it to 30. Sing, 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 and toss my limbs in every direction. Call it praying. Dancing. I am crying into the wind my propellers are making. I am watering the flowers. Each tulip I picked and potted, strategically placed around the apartment to crowd myself with life. To prove it can bring me joy and ask for nothing in return, I bow down to thank the tulips, to thank the carnations, the marigolds and mini roses, thank the orange jabura daisies that sit on top of the white speakers. Sing, sing, sing. For today, the flowers, they are not singing. I am.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh my gosh. Sing, sing, sing. Nicely done. Nicely done. Wow. I feel like I'm getting an individual serenade, like it's just you and I. But then there's other people here who get to share too. So that was awesome and so good to speak with you. And I'm so excited because as well as having the opportunity to chat with you and hear your work in this interview, we're also getting a set of like a short poetry set, well, shortish, I guess 15 minutes, up to 15 minutes of more of your work, which I'm really excited to hear. So if you want to hear more of Sabrina's work, please check out Brickyard. I'm not sure if it's coming up, it's going to go up before or after the interview, actually, to tell you the truth. We're about a month ahead of time right now. So look, it might be there. And you can follow Sabrina. Check out her website at sabrinabenaim.net or social media at BadassSab. And there's going to be the link with all of that stuff below. And please check back for more mental health related content. I think you're going to be the second last, we'll see. So there might be one more artist coming up during this month. It's part of our Intersectional Poetica program. We're going to be doing showcases all throughout the year. And you can find out more about these upcoming showcases by signing up to our newsletter at brickbooks.ca. And final plug, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, like for reals, because the Brickyard is a new entity. It's all Canadian artists. We have our profit sharing model in place. So we are really trying to build up our followings for a very specific purpose, which is cha-ching, money in the bank for artists and for us to continue doing this. So if you like it, please help support us. And I guess that's it. So thank you again, Sabrina, so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me and also for everything.
Oh, thanks, hon. Okay, see you later, everybody. Come back and we'll see you again. Take care.